Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. Hello, thank you for watching my videos. It's Mike. It's July 26th, 2009. Now I've been off on holiday for a couple of weeks, so there's a couple of stories that I didn't report on, which I should mention here. The first one is this story from the Financial Times, which was published July 21st, well online and in the paper on the 22nd. Most important thing, China to deploy foreign reserves. Beijing will use its foreign exchange reserves, the largest in the world, to support and accelerate expansion and acquisitions by Chinese companies. The country's premier said in comments published on Tuesday. Basically what they're going to do is going to take their money, their Federal Reserve notes and so forth, and go and buy companies with them and give them to somebody else. Some other poor sucker will take them. So they're basically going to go out and buy $2 trillion worth of stuff. Real companies, real assets, mining, commodity companies, and so forth. Technology companies too. So this should be very interesting. What happens when China unloads all these foreign reserves? I mean, effectively, they're just saying, "Okay, we're going to get rid of this. We're going to buy something else with it. That's fine. That's cool." We'll have a dramatic knock-on effect to the Treasury market. Over in the UK. MPC minutes trigger jitters in the gilt market over QE plans. Now this is by Angela Monaghan in the Telegraph, published also on the 22nd of July. Basically the Monetary Policy Committee said they're going to halt quantitative easing in the UK, so they're going to stop buying gilts. Next week they're going to buy £4 billion worth of gilts, and that's it, no more. This is sending the gilt market completely mental. Gilt bonds, the yield on 10-year gilts jumped to 3.9%, and where previously it was at 3.74%. So it's a pretty huge jump, and it's probably only going to get worse. Now I'm going to breeze past some of the other stories. They are linked here at the side, but there's a really important story I want to spend a lot of time talking about. So a couple of other articles on the same thing. Huge gilts row barely registers as the UK sleepwalks into stagnation. This was from yesterday by Liam Halligan. And part of what he's talking about is, we're effectively the UK is creating a whole bunch of zombie banks, but nobody realizes yet. Alistair Darling made comments this morning. He was concerned over banks lending, effectively saying, well, we gave them all this money, they were supposed to be lending it out, but there are claims from small businesses that they are being denied cheap loans by British banks, despite the banks receiving tens of billions of pounds in government assistance. Well, where did the tens of billions of pounds of government assistance come from? Well, gilts, funnily enough. And guess who's buying the gilts? Bank of England. So the Bank of England is effectively funding the banks, keeping them going, and sort of, and the banks aren't lending. Article linked here from Telegraph also, British economic collapse rivals Great Depression. Okay, well someone actually put it into print, which is absolutely amazing. Basically on Thursday they announced that the economic output for gross domestic product for the UK declined 0.8% in the second quarter. Now this is their initial estimate. It may go worse, we don't know. However, the year-on-year contraction is currently sitting at 5.6%. And if you look at the graph here, you can see that it's pretty nice, and straight in the toilet. So, yeah, never mind, we're not supposed to know this stuff. Wind turbine workers continue occupation at axed plant. Now, when I was on holiday, I was out on Lake Huron, and Bruce County has put in 150 wind generating turbines. They've got this massive field of turbines. It's pretty spectacular to look at. And if you peer at it close enough, you can figure out who's making these turbines. It's a company called Vestas out in Denmark. I had the pleasure of actually visiting them and trying to sell them our software, because apparently there's some really tricky software that goes into these wind turbines, and it takes quite a while to build it. And we were going to optimize that, but they decided not to go with us for some peculiar reason, which is fine. However, what's happening? Isle of Wight, Newport. Basically 25 workers at the Vestas plant there are on a sit-in. Basically because Vestas is threatening to close the plant within days, i.e. before the end of July, with the loss of 525 jobs. because, quote, the UK market for turbines is so small. Well, I thought the whole thing was we're all going to go green and they're going to be, you know, massive turbine, so on and so forth. Linked here also from the Isle of Wight County Press online. Estimated 400 people rallied outside the occupied Vestas wind blade factory after a march through the streets of Newport to the plant, carrying signs such as "Save our dad's job," "Save our Vestas, save our jobs," etc. And there's protests going on at other Vestas plants around the world. Apparently there was one in Sweden as well, saying you can't close plants like this. And of course there is a quote in here basically saying, you know, I've got a family to feed. He told the rally he had to get involved because he knew his chances of getting another job on the island were next to zero. And of course Isle of Wight is a tiny little place off of the coast. And so, a couple of other quick stories. Toyota in talks to close a plant. Toyota's going to close a plant in the States, in California, funnily enough. This is sending some nasty things. Ernie's out there shouting at them saying, don't close the plant, don't close the plant. So we'll see what happens there. Linked here, alternative numbers. Someone has been sending me ShadowStats.com documents, which is great. Thank you very much. Anyway, so if we look at alternative measures of unemployment across the states, and I've linked this page here from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Basically, they detail what the various numbers are, the U1, the U3, the U6, etc. Now, the U3 is the official unemployment number. However, most people actually should be looking at the U6 number, which is what used to be reported before they started realizing it was a complete mess. Anyway, so I've linked a page to the state-by-state unemployment numbers. Now, these are the official figures. It's probably much worse. Now, California, the U6 number is 17.7%. Now, your official unemployment number in the States is what? 9.6%, something like that. There are very few states where real unemployment is lower than the national average of 9.6%. And in fact, the majority of states, the real unemployment is vastly higher. Now, ShadowStats.com has also come up with a total number, their adjusted number, and they are saying it should be around about 20.6% unemployed in North America. Sorry, in America, not North America, by mistake. So in the US, the number should be around 20.6%. California officials concerned about new budget woes. Apparently they're not sure if they're going to sort out their budget in time. They have to continue issuing IOUs. 7 banks failed on Friday, or were closed by the FDIC on Friday. Georgia, 6 banks in Georgia, basically the same bunch of banks within the same group, Security Bank, and 1 in New York State, which was the first state to be closed in 2009. In fact, the first bank in the state that's been closed since 2004. So, banks are closing, folks, over in the States. Nobody's talking about it. Here's a couple of stories that caught my eye, and good for a laugh. Jupiter apparently is our protector. Yes, the planet. Apparently last Sunday, an object, they believe a comet, but they're not quite sure what it was, smashed into the back of Jupiter. And as it spun around, an amateur astronomer spotted this rather large blob on the side of Jupiter. He notified NASA, and NASA moved the Hubble into position. Apparently it's not fixed yet, but it's good enough they could actually take a shot of this thing. And they've decided that it was actually the size of the Pacific Ocean. So whatever hit Jupiter was pretty darn big. It's made a big dent in Jupiter. And there's an interesting article here about how the big gas giants are our protectors, capturing all this junk as it comes hurtling in from the Oort cloud. Of course, so the biggest danger, as they say, for those of you out there who are convinced that Earth will be smashed by a huge asteroid or some other weird thing, Jupiter might catch it. If not, we're probably toast, so who cares? So, I thought that was fairly interesting, though. So some of you out there are really into that kind of stuff. There's some really interesting pictures in there of the effect this had on Jupiter. Now, a couple of serious videos here, Over in the UK, a woman was detained for filming police. Now I've linked here, this was actually originally from The Guardian, but I've linked the video here of her explaining what happened and the process they went through to do this. So Gemma Atkinson claims she was handcuffed and detained after recording a search of her boyfriend on a mobile phone, basically using this whole anti-terrorism law nonsense to remove her civil rights. And they never bothered to notify her that they were actually the police when they came and grabbed her. But that's just a minor detail. And nor would they tell her their names afterwards when she was being released. They wouldn't say what their names were or give their badge IDs. That's going to be fun to explain. And finally, very interesting lady, Kelly Neal. She's done a number of videos, and there's a playlist I've attached here. A conscious universe, the observer effect, effectively going on about quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and this whole concept of if you observe an atom, you can either observe its size or you can observe its momentum, but you cannot observe both. You can't measure one and the other at the same time. It's a bit of a conundrum. And once you begin to understand that and how that actually affects things beyond the quantum level, beyond the level of an atom and an electron, and consider the entire universe in such a way, the universe only exists because we observe it. Interesting theory. Okay, peace, love, understanding, think about things. I'll speak to you later. Bye.